The cold wasn't just uncomfortable, it was an enemy. Imagine waking up every morning with no walls, no heaters, no warm blankets, and no guarantee that the sun would save you. For ancient humans, winter meant one thing: survive or disappear forever. And to stay alive, they did things that modern people would find absolutely terrifying. They followed dying animals for days, hoping to claim their bodies before the ice swallowed them. They burned precious food as fuel because warmth mattered more than hunger. And sometimes, families were forced to make impossible choices about who could keep walking and who could not. This wasn't cruelty, this was survival. More than 20,000 years ago, during the last ice age, temperatures in some regions dropped far below anything most Americans have ever experienced. Entire landscapes became frozen deserts. Yet somehow, humans refused to vanish. Instead, they adapted. And the first dark secret of surviving the cold began with one simple realization: the dead could keep the living alive. What they discovered was shocking. The dead could protect the living. Ancient hunters learned that a single mammoth wasn't just food. It was an entire winter survival kit. Its skin became shelter. Its fat became fuel. Its bones became tools. And sometimes, even walls. Archaeologists have uncovered Ice Age homes built almost entirely from mammoth bones. Dozens of giant skeletons arranged in circles, not as graves, but as houses. Imagine living inside the remains of creatures your family hunted months earlier. To modern minds, it sounds horrifying. To them, it meant another chance to see spring. Nothing was wasted. Every piece had value. Because in a world ruled by ice, waste could mean death. And then came an even darker realization: fire wasn't enough. Humans needed to wear the animals they killed, or become victims themselves. The first winter clothing wasn't fashion, it was survival armor. Ancient humans discovered that the difference between life and death could be the skin of another creature, but making those clothes came at a brutal cost. Animal hides froze solid within hours. If hunters didn't process them immediately, the warmth trapped inside would be lost forever. So entire families worked together. Children scraped fur, adults stretched skins, elders stitched pieces together using bone needles and animal tendons. Every hand mattered, because one mistake, one poorly made coat, could mean freezing to death in the night. And during the harshest winters, people sometimes wore multiple layers of heavy hides, making movement slow and exhausting. Yet standing still was even worse. The cold demanded constant motion, constant work, constant sacrifice. But nature still had one terrifying advantage: the predators. Because when food disappeared, humans weren't the only ones fighting to survive. And hungry wolves saw something new on the frozen horizon. Other hunters. Winter changed the rules of nature. When food vanished, predators grew bolder. Wolves followed human camps. Cave lions prowled nearby. And hungry bears searched for anything that still breathed. Ancient humans couldn't afford fear. They had to become smarter than every creature around them. So they built rings of fire at night, not for comfort, for protection. Entire groups slept in shifts. While some rested, others stayed awake, listening to the darkness beyond the flames. A snapped branch, a distant growl, could mean disaster. But over time, something extraordinary happened. Some wolves stopped attacking. Instead, they lingered near human camps, feeding on scraps and warning people about larger predators. An unlikely partnership was beginning, one that would eventually change human history forever. But even with fire, even with animal skins, and even with new allies, the cold demanded one more terrible sacrifice. Sometimes, people had to leave everything behind and keep moving. The Ice Age had one brutal rule: move or die. When the animals migrated, humans followed. When rivers froze, entire families abandoned the places they once called home. Nothing was permanent, not even survival. Ancient groups sometimes walked hundreds of miles, across frozen landscapes with children, elders, and everything they owned. There were no maps, no roads, only memory and hope. The strongest hunters led from the front. The wisest elders remembered where water could still be found beneath the ice. And every night, the group faced the same terrifying question: would everyone still be alive by morning? The cold punished weakness, a twisted ankle, a missing fire, one bad storm. Any mistake could end generations of knowledge forever. Yet humans kept moving, because they understood something powerful. The world belonged not to the strongest, but to those who adapted. And soon, they would discover the darkest survival tool of all. They would learn to fight winter itself, using the bodies of the animals they hunted. The cold was relentless. No matter how strong you were, winter always wanted more. And that's when ancient humans discovered one of the strangest survival secrets in history. A freshly hunted animal was more than food. For a short time, it was warmth. Hunters noticed that large animals retained heat long after death. In extreme conditions, every bit of that warmth mattered. Nothing was wasted. The hide became clothing, the fat became fuel, the bones became tools, and the meat became precious energy for the journey ahead. Ancient communities learned to use every part of an animal because survival left no room for waste. To modern people, that level of necessity can seem shocking, but during the Ice Age, nature offered no second chances. Every successful hunt meant another week, another month, maybe another winter. Yet, even after solving the problem of warmth, another threat remained. One that couldn't be fought with fire, one that couldn't be hunted with spears. Hunger, because the cold didn't just freeze the land, it made food disappear. Then came the longest winters, the kind that seemed endless. Animals disappeared from familiar hunting grounds, plants vanished beneath layers of snow, and entire communities faced a terrifying reality. There simply wasn't enough food. Ancient humans responded with incredible ingenuity. They dried meat in the freezing air. They stored fat inside skin containers. They cracked massive bones to reach the calorie-rich marrow hidden inside. Nothing edible was ignored. Even parts modern societies often throw away became precious sources of energy, because during an ice age, calories were life itself. Children learned survival skills early. Elders shared generations of knowledge around the fire. Every lesson mattered. Where to find hidden water, how to recognize animal tracks beneath fresh snow, how to preserve food before the next storm arrived. Human cooperation became their greatest weapon. No single person survived alone, but the cold had one final challenge, a threat that arrived quietly, inside their own shelters: disease. Because when families gathered close together for warmth, new dangers emerged from within. The deadliest threats weren't always outside the camp. Sometimes, they slept beside you. During brutal winters, entire families crowded into tiny shelters to preserve heat. It was necessary, but it came with a cost. Smoke from constant fires filled the air, illness spread more easily, and a single sickness could weaken an entire group. Ancient people had no medicine, no hospitals, no understanding of bacteria or viruses. What they did have was each other. When someone became too weak to hunt, others shared food. When storms trapped families for days, stories kept fear under control. Knowledge became as important as fire itself. Parents taught children which roots remained edible beneath snow. Hunters memorized migration routes that changed every season. Elders carried maps that existed only inside their minds, because losing one person's experience could mean losing an entire community's chance of survival. And through all of this hardship, humans discovered their greatest weapon: not strength, not speed, but cooperation, the very thing that would eventually allow our species to conquer the cold forever. The Ice Age didn't just change human behavior, it changed humanity itself. The cold forced people to think ahead, to cooperate, to plan for months instead of days. For perhaps the first time in history, survival depended as much on intelligence as strength. The groups that shared resources endured, the groups that learned from their elders survived, and the groups that adapted inherited the future. Every winter became a test, not of muscles, but of ideas. How do you store food? How do you protect children? How do you remember safe routes across a frozen world? These questions shaped the human mind, and slowly, something extraordinary happened. People stopped merely reacting to nature. They began preparing for it, building better shelters, creating stronger clothing, passing knowledge from one generation to the next. The darkness of winter forged new traditions, new communities, and ultimately, a new kind of human being. But one final lesson remained, the greatest secret ancient people ever learned about surviving the cold. And it's a lesson we still carry today. The darkest things ancient humans did to survive the cold weren't dark because people were evil, they were dark because nature gave them no easy choices. They slept beside fire every night because one mistake meant death. They used every part of the animals they hunted because waste was a luxury they couldn't afford. They crossed frozen worlds carrying children, memories, and hope, without knowing what waited beyond the horizon. And somehow, against impossible odds, they survived. Not because they were the biggest predators, not because they were the fastest creatures on Earth, but because they stayed together. The Ice Age taught humanity a lesson that still matters today. No one survives alone. Every blanket, every house, every warm meal, and every modern comfort exists because thousands of generations endured winters far harsher than we can imagine. The cold shaped our ancestors. Their sacrifices shaped civilization, and their determination shaped us. So the next time you step into a warm home on a freezing night, remember this: deep inside your DNA lives the memory of people who stared into endless winter and refused to surrender, because the greatest human superpower was never strength, it was adaptation, and that single trait changed the course of history forever. If humanity could survive the Ice Age, imagine what we can survive together today. Subscribe for more untold stories hidden in human history.